decline to some extent of the Tea Party brand. What we're seeing is Donald Trump stepping in as really the catalyst to animate really the most disaffected portion of white working class voters. One caveat I want to just make sure I get in here is that Donald Trump's favorability among white working class voters as a whole is only about 40%, and that's about the number that he gets among white working class Republican voters as well. But having said that, he is absolutely animating the most disaffected group of this this important group in the American public.
Okay, I want to bring the panel in and come to you on this, Whitney, because you've been seeing this in real time. When you're out talking with voters, what are you hearing from this most disaffected group of white working class Americans?
They're absolutely recognizing that there's a huge shift in their world, and I think what's always really interesting about it is that in reality, if you look at objectively at the numbers, let's be honest, like the influence and the huge proportion of resources that the white male Americans especially still have in this country, it's really not declining significantly. We have better health, we make more money, we have better education, all this, but it is changing. It is changing, and one of the things when I see this, anecdotally, or I see how people are responding to it, and why it's such a big part of the political discussion now, is I'm one of those people who still believes that the Barack Obama administration really affects how people see the world, because it's a very different representation of what America looks like. And for me, someone who's a liberal white male who's worked in social justice issues for a long time, still, when I see Barack Obama on TV, I don't really think about him racially. When I see the White House Christmas card and I see that black American family in the White House, it still catches me off guard that there's a black first family. And I think that in all the things that really, really, really affects how people see the government and why it's such an issue in the Republican race.
And Brittany, that is the fact, right? That you do have this sort of new look of America, and not just Barack Obama and his family, but the coalition that elected them. That is still resonant, I think, for a lot of white voters, is it not?
That's right. So there's this real deep psychology that's rooted in white dominance, right? There's a sense that seeing white people in leadership, particularly white men, gives a feeling of safety to the white working class. That's historically been true. There's a great book by David Rediger called The Wages of Whiteness, where he talks about how this ideology was created in the 1850s to keep the white working class from allying with enslaved black people, even though their working conditions were incredibly similar. So one of the things we have happening is that we see the white working class actually voting with a party that does not have their economic interest at heart. And historically, whenever we see that, it tends to be because the ideology of racial dominance feels like a safer bet than allying with a party around issues of class.
And Robert, I'm going to come back to you, Robbie. I'll come back to you on that, because there is a very strong tendency of white working class voters, even if they are at the lowest end of the economic scale, to still vote with the party that doesn't tend to favor assistance to those at the lower economic scale. Did you find anything in the data to explain why that is?
Well, a couple of things is going on here. I mean, the biggest thing to say, I think, in terms of understanding the white working class and it not being a monolith, it is about a third of Americans. And what we see is that there are strong regional differences that are really playing a role here. They play a role both in politics and in terms of support of kind of economic issues versus cultural issues. And one interesting thing to note is that if you look back across the last 50 years of elections, it really is white working class voters in the South that have been disaffected from the Democratic Party and have left the Democratic Party by about 20 percentage points here. And it's really been largely over racial politics. So it's post-civil rights, disaffection of the Democratic Party and movement toward the Republican Party. If you look at white working class voters in the rest of the country, actually Democratic share of the vote has actually been quite stable. So what we're seeing here is not sort of across the board things happening with the white working class, but really a kind of regional disaffection that kind of plays out in these kind of cultural issues where you have a more culturally conservative segment of the party, of that group in the South.
Well, thank you very much for giving us a lot of that data support. Really appreciate it. Robert Jones in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and stay right there, because up next, the voices in the crowd, a closer look at what's happening inside some of those huge Donald Trump rallies.
The Citi Double Cash Card comes in very handy with cash back twice on purchases. Earn once when you buy and again as you pay. That's cash back now and cash back again later. It's cash back deja vu. The City Double Cash Card, the only card that lets you earn cash back twice on every purchase, with 1% when you buy and 1% as you pay. With 2 ways to earn, it makes a lot of other cards seem one-sided.